Hey everybody, it's me, Remy, the comic book poser, and I'm here today to welcome you to Enter the Poserverse. It's Tuesday, so you know what that means. It's time to find out what books that I'm pulling this week that I think you should read along with me. And to see what we got coming down the pipe, you'll have to check it out after this.
Hey, little girl, did you want to know a secret?
I got 5 on it. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Alright, before we click over to the page viewer, last shameless plug, today is your last day to get entered in the monthly Patreon giveaway drawing. This is the 1 in 50 incentive variant cover for Radiant Black #1 from Image Comics. Figure we're going to get started with a bang of an indie comic and of a cover to say thank you to the folks who have thrown a couple of bones my way. But without further ado, let's talk about what comics I'm pulling this week. Bigger week than usual. There are a couple of books on here that I don't know if will be in time because I don't know if I made it before final order cutoff on a couple of them. First from DC is Batcat #4. I still haven't read #3. I'm going to try and get that rectified. My to-read stack has gotten bigger and bigger the last 2 weeks. Since 2 out of the last 3 weeks I picked up books on Saturday instead of Wednesday. Next one I'm actually kind of excited for from Marvel. It's Beta Ray Bill #1. I like how he is listed as the second most famous wielder of Mjolnir. So I want to check out kind of what's going on when Beta Ray Bill gets some of his own spotlight, that we get to see him show up kind of as a foil that we've seen Beta Ray I almost said Beta Ray Jim. Shout out to my guy. But we've seen Beta Ray Bill show up twice in the current Thor run, so I want to see what he does now. Next up from Keen Spot is Biden's Titans #1, and I literally only want this because I'm sending a couple of my political themed comics to EGS. I've got the Barack and Black from Antarctic Press, I think it is. I've got the AOC Debates Ben Shapiro comic from Keen Spot. I've got the World's Greatest Idiots that has Dan Quayle on the cover. I am looking for the Trump one that came out in his first term, or the first year of his first term, because that was before I started collecting again. And then I gotta have the Biden one, and I think this is going to be the theme that I'll just try and get my #1 of Keen Spot, or anybody else who's making a comic book about, our current president or, major politics. Next up from AWA is Bite Size #4. This has been interesting, kind of watching the robots become self-aware and trying to kind of play with or manipulate technology. I've enjoyed this. This is one of the more YA-oriented titles from AWA Upshot, but it's still been a pretty good run, and it's a different gear to read Cullen Bunn in, right? It's not big, scary, over-the-top kind of horror that I tend to like from Bunn. It's got its spooky moments for little kids, but it's been an enjoyable read. Next up from Image is Crossover #5. First, I love this cover. I think it's kind of dope in terms of playing on the side. I like the gradation of the cover, the color on the cover. It's just kind of cool to look at. This has been a good read that I don't know if it's brought all of the heat that everybody thought it may in terms of all of the spec value. I know I've been guilty of chasing some of the speculation in terms of titles that have been called out from this. So I'm wondering, since we're probably on the next to the last book of the first arc, if we're going to get some kind of explosive payoff from these nods to Kate's past work. Next up from Source Point Press is Dead End Kids The Suburban Job #3. This is a very good book. I read it because it came in my Source Point Press box that I did a short for, and that is also actually releasing this afternoon. So if you want to see what's in the guts of the first attempt of a subscription box from Source Point Press, you'll be able to check it out. But I came away very, very happy, and I can't wait for my second one in, I think, 2 weeks now. Next up from Image's Department of Truth #7. I have enjoyed all of this. I'm also excited to see what Tyler Boss will do in terms of the art on this book. That you can see that he's done 4 Kids Walk into a Bank, which is a brilliant title that I kind of liked the way that he played with the characters in terms of the art that he created for that piece. So I want to see what his take on the Department of Truth universe really is. Next up, I have missed me some Flash. We have the retirement of Wally West. We have a new Flash coming into the fold in this Infinite Frontier run. So again, missing out on the Flash during Future State stuff. I'm excited to see what happens in this new kind of push. Next up from Vault is Giga number 3. Whew, it feels like it's been like 2 months since Giga number 2's come out, and maybe it has been. But I'm excited to see what happens as they discover that the technology maybe has been abused. Next up, it's no secret how much I love Zach Thompson and everything that he has written, and I seriously think I Breathed a Body is kind of a culmination of all of his other dark technology books. So if you've liked Lonely Receiver or you like Come Into Me, then you should enjoy a book like this, and you can kind of see the influence of one another on here. So as they continue to kind of exploit the death of a massive social media influencer, I kind of want to see how this keeps playing off. That this has been a wild ride, and I've loved every second of it. This has some of the most breathtaking art that I have seen in kind of a technological horror book, or a horror book at all, that if you like gritty art, just pick it up and stare at it and go, ooh, she purty. Next up, we've got King in Black, Return of the Valkyries, number 4. This is setting up the next Valkyries run that I think is being written by Jason Aaron, but I've liked watching all of them kind of played together in terms of what can they do to help save the Sentry, what can they do in the war against the symbiotes, that there are just so many interesting things that have happened that this might be one of my favorite tie-ins, that it might be a tie between this and Gwenom versus Carnage, because that was fun watching Gwen Stacy and Carnaged out Mary Jane trade blows. But this has been a very, very good read. Speaking of good reads, Man's World number 3 from AWA is also coming out this week. We have, asshole tourists who have shown up to an all-inclusive island, have fought with the locals, and now the locals are getting ready to fight back. We started to see a taste of the coming conflict at the end of Book 2, and I'm ready for this one. There's a good chance that Man's World number 3 is going to be one of the first books I check out this week. Next up from Aftershock is Nuclear Family number 2. It's always a good month when I can get several different books from Stephanie Phillips week after week after week after week after week. I really enjoyed the first one in terms of looking at who may survive and why they may have survived a nuclear blast, so I'm waiting for the next chapter in this one. The series that I've absolutely loved, that I think is coming out every other month, it has been this other history of the DC universe, this kind of Elseworlds tale. Well, not really Elseworlds, but kind of telling the dark history of minority superheroes, either working alone, working with teams, and kind of everything that they have faced. I am not fully familiar with the character that this book kind of dives into, so I think this might be one of the middle of the stack books for me, only so I can, read a couple of pages and Google some stuff and be like, wait, who is she? Let's see all of these different things, and kind of go back and forth, but I'm excited for it. Alright, next up from Boom Studios is Power Rangers Unlimited Heir to Darkness number 1. This is an $8 one-shot. We get to watch one of the strongest Power Rangers villains ever in Astromania kind of figure out how she got her powers, and unlike a lot of one-shots which just kind of pop up randomly and may be tangentially related to a title, this directly is going to play into the events, or is playing into the events that has happened in Mighty Morphin and Power Rangers number 5, I think, which just came out the last 2 weeks. Next up from IDW is Sea of Sorrows number 4. I've really enjoyed this Dark Mermaid Sirens title. I know a lot of the criticism of this book was it felt like the same thing kind of playing its way out, which there might be a little bit of truth to that claim, but I really kind of like watching the descent into madness for some of the characters, that I think the nuance in some of the art has made it very interesting. The desire to say screw it and let Fallen crewmates left behind because of the greed of finding some of the gold. It's just interesting watching all of the social dynamics of this book play out. Next, our new number 1 from Image Comics this week is Shadecraft. It's about somebody who's afraid of her shadow, and she maybe thinks shadows are coming to life in her town. Like I say, with most indie publishers that I like, I give it the one issue. I trust the number 1 because I trust the publisher, which means I'm probably stuck pulling Shadecraft until it's done. Next up from Vault is Shadow Service number 6. This arc, book 5 kind of ended out of nowhere, and I was like, crap, I don't read previews that well, and missed that it was the end of the arc. So I'm excited to see kind of how this mythical, it's magic crime noir playing its way out. I really enjoyed getting to watch MI666 play out as an organization. I liked kind of learning about this new world, and this is a Vault title that I may not talk about all that often because I get kind of confused with magic stuff sometimes, but it's really an enjoyable read that you should definitely, if you like magic, you like crime, then you should definitely consider picking up the trade of the first arc and then picking up book 6 this week. Next up, Silk number 1 is out. I think this is one of the hottest and most anticipated books of the week. Cindy Moon and her first appearance in Original Sin number 4 has been spiking, and as has number 5, her second appearance. There is a lot of speculation that she is showing up in Into the Spider-Verse number 2. So I want to see what's happening in terms of her kind of fresh start in this new Marvel solo title. Next, from DC's Strange Adventures number 9, we're finally getting the correct version of the truth, I think, in terms of what's happening in Adam Strange's conflict with the Pict. Is he a war criminal? Is he a villain? We're still on the verge of finding that out. I will read it this week, but I will still say that I think, just like Mr. Miracle, everybody said read better in trade. I think that's probably true with Strange Adventure. Next up from Marvel is Symbiote Spider-Man King in Black. This is the conclusion of the Symbiote Spider-Man arc, I think, but now we get to see Symbiote Spider-Man and Null go to blows and see if he is able to help restore some sanity. That we've seen some chips taken out of Null's armor, so we don't know, how successful he'll be. Next, I think this is the final book of Terminal Punks. I can't remember if it's a 5 or 6 issue series, but this has been a fun ride throughout. My wife makes fun of me for wearing my Terminal Punks shirt because it's got a massive bleeding bear on it, but I like it. We started seeing things start to come together, shifts in the band, new relationships and bonds form in book number 4, and I think things are about to get pretty explosive, especially if this is the final book, or even crazier if there's one more to bring it to rest. But this isn't the only time that we'll talk about Matthew Erdman this week. But you should definitely check out Terminal Punks because Shelby Criswell's art, they absolutely crush it. All of these homage covers are amazing, so check it out. This is a trade that you're going to want to get if you've missed out on the single issues. Next up from Image is Two Moons number 2. I really liked this first one because we had, a paranormal horror really kind of blow up in the last couple of pages of Two Moons number 1. The owner of my LCS, there wasn't a copy left, and I was like, dude, you need to read this, and it ended up being his pick of the week from that week. So yes, very excited. Need this book. It's going to be towards the top of the stack. All right. I said I would not be done talking about Matthew Erdman. This was the big project that he announced on his social media about 2 months ago. This is the continuation of Vampire the Masquerade. This is the next arc in Witchblood. This is his next project. I think the artist might be his wife, but I'm not 100% certain on that. But I think I'm right, because this was the team that did Long Lost from Scout. And I think that was him and his wife. I'm a bad person. I can't remember that from the interview. But I'm excited to read it. I have only read a couple of issues of Vampire the Masquerade, so I'm going to guess what happens as I read this. My mind gets blown because I love Matthew Erdman's writing, and I'm going to go back and pick up the trades even if I have to read it digitally. Our last two books of the week are X-Men 19. We finally figure out what has happened in the Vault, which has kind of been tormenting us for the last maybe 8 to 10 issues, kind of lingering in the background aside from the Ten of Swords event stuff. And then next, the book that, snuck up on me and I loved it was X-Men Legends. X-Men Legends number 2 is out. If you were a fan of the 1991, 92, 93 run of the X-Men universe, then this is the book for you, because this is telling the story between some of those issues. It was real good. It felt like my childhood. It gave me the most warm and nostalgic feeling I've had from reading a comic in a while. So I'm excited. And I think this is an entire team of Stormbreakers, which is the next wave of talent that Marvel is attempting to groom. Last up, the new books from Scout this week. I think my Scout box from the month of March is actually coming in the next day or two, so I think I will get to check these out. Sam and His Talking Gun number 1 was absolutely insane in terms of, the story premise is literally the title, and it helps him, heighten his fighting acumen, and it's really, really cool. And I'm also excited to check out The Impure. It is another one of those non-stop titles that comes from Scout Comics, which is, issue 1 comes out physically, everything else comes out in a trade. I love and hate these non-stop books at the same time because it's a good, tease. It gets you, excited about something and you're like, ah, crap, I gotta wait 4 months for the trade to come out. But it's not that big of a change of pace from Scout because they have that 2 to 3 month gap between when they release a number 1 and a number 2 comes out for all of that reordering and printing stuff. So we'll see how I feel, but I think that might be in my email and I'll probably read it when I'm done with stuff this evening. What do you think? Are there any books that I'm missing out on this week that you think I should pick up? Last week, I got yelled at to pick up the new Detective Comics book and it made my weekly pick. So if there's anything that is coming out that you think I'll be able to get my hands on at one of the 3 shops that I will go to between Wednesday and Thursday, then let me know. But as always, y'all, thanks for stopping by and have a good one.
Thank you for being a friend. And I want to thank you. Thank you, silence.
Hey, little girl, did you want to know a secret?
I got 5 on it. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4.